Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Regular listeners will know that recently I've spoken to the guys at Real Madrid about becoming the first sporting brand to reach 100 million likes on Facebook. Then there was also a company called Umbel, which is a first-party data management platform that empowers sporting clubs to engage better and understand their own audiences. But I've also spoken to the Motorsport Network and how they're accelerating the digital transformation of Formula One and motorsport. But it's got me thinking, what about how technology is actually directly impacting a sport itself? Step forward Arccos. Now they're revolutionising the golfing experience by integrating automatic shot tracking with artificial intelligence by bringing back the Caddie, albeit of the virtual kind. Powered by Microsoft Azure cloud platform, the Arccos Caddie has been further enhanced with refined machine learning and AI algorithms, as well as persistent displays of wind and elevation data throughout the entire round. So all this was enough to capture my attention. So buckle up and hold on tight, because it's time to beam your ears all the way to New York City so we can speak with Sal Said, CEO of Arccos. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Neil. I'm Sal Said, CEO and co-founder of Arccos Golf. And what Arccos Golf is we consider ourselves pioneering big data and AI in golf, AI being artificial intelligence. And I would say, in a nutshell, what we've created is a hardware and software platform that, one, automatically tracks all your golf data, and then two, provides AI-driven insights into your strengths and weaknesses, how far you hit each club, and how you should be playing any given hole in the world.
Now, I've seen quite a few golf gadgets out there, but I believe Arccos has released something that I've not really seen before. Because you appeared on my radar when I learned that AI is being applied to the game of golf, like you mentioned now, and it's assisting golfers to improve their game and shave their handicaps with the assistance of Microsoft Azure cloud platform thrown in as well, which is bound to get you on my radar straight away when you mention big tech names like that. But can you tell me about the Arccos Caddie, which is tagged as the first AI platform for golf? And also what makes it unique from all those other golfing gadgets that I mentioned a few moments ago?
What we're trying to build at Arccos isn't a gadget that you're going to try a few times and put it away. Yeah. This is a technology that's here to stay. It's going to change the game of golf forever. And why is it here to stay? I'd say, there's a few ways to think about this. Number one, when you look at the PGA Tour, they have this system called ShotLink, where you have 350 volunteers every day manually inputting all the shot tracking data or shot location data for every shot golfers are taking. And that's the only data PGA Tour records. And so that's the data that Dustin Johnson used to get to number one in the world. That's the data all these players use to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, what they should be working on, recording. And we're doing it automatically. We're going to make it, basically our goal is to make it so seamless that you don't even realize that the data is being recorded. And I would say we're pretty close to that. So I would say that's what differentiates a gadget from a platform. And what we're building is a platform for data collection for golf so they can get insight. So it's seamless. It ties into the rituals of the game. You really don't have to do anything. And then now once you have this platform to capture all this data, which, by the way, we've already captured 120 million plus shots. So Once you have that, then it unlocks the possibility of this entire big data revolution that's going in the direction of AI. You need a lot of data to get the AI-driven insights, the machine learning insights, and that's what we're doing with Microsoft. So I can talk about the Arccos Caddie. We have a big vision on what this data is going to do, and the first piece of that is the Arccos Caddie. And the cool thing about Arccos Caddie is there's a paragraph that describes it, and I'll just kind of paraphrase it. And it goes like this. The caddy is an institution and a mentor. So well versed is the caddy in your game that were you to make a choice that's against what the caddies recommended, you'll invariably make a bad shot. And this quote, this paragraph, the cool thing about it is it wasn't written by me. It was written by C.B. Macdonald, who was one of the founders of the USGA 100 years ago. And so historically, when you look at the game of golf, caddies have been around for the first 400 years, but today only 3% of rounds are played with caddies. And the reason caddies were there is golf's one of the few sports where you actually have like a decision-making process every shot, and that's where the caddy can really help you. And so what we've done is we've taken the 120 million plus shots, we've taken billions of points on the golf course, we've taken weather, we've taken literally every single variable you can imagine, and then generated the Arccos Caddie algorithm, which gives you your optimal strategy of every tee shot in the world. And eventually it'll become live in real time and all that stuff. Today, it has given you your best strategy off the tee for every club. And by the way, this is USGA conforming.
Fantastic. Now, you've mentioned there that you've got data of 120 million shots already, but I've got to take you back in time for a few moments. I mean, where did the idea come from to bring AI into golf?
Yeah, I would say I'm a student of the history of the game.
Yeah.
And the whole premise for Arccos is we're going to collect data to give you insight so you make better decisions. And I would say over the last 4-5 years, the world really has evolved around machine learning, where the machine learning algorithms that were only accessible to like the Microsofts and the Googles of the world are now through like the cloud platforms, through the Azure machine learning platform is accessible to us. And so I would say the vision and the thought was always there in terms of applying machine learning. Few things enabled it. One was like I would say since the iPhone and all that stuff, like cell phones have become so prevalent, the sensor technology has become really affordable. So now we can build sensors that can collect this data. Two, the data collection technologies in the cloud and the data analysis and the machine learning has become accessible. And three, I would say if you're a student of the game, you start looking at, okay, what are things that have changed over the last 100 years? And one of the key things that has gone missing ever since the golf cart came in and golf has expanded on the socioeconomic scale is the caddy's gone missing. And so I would say like when you combine all those three, you're like, oh, wow, you know what we could do is, as ironic it is, we can, through technology, through all the technology, bring back something that's been lost to the game.
And can you also tell me about this partnership with Microsoft? I mean, how did that come to fruition?
Yeah, so Microsoft, we're super excited about the partnership. They have great technology, but they also have great people. How did it come about? Like it was, I would say certainly any partnership, you have to align, I would say, the objectives of what Microsoft's looking or Arccos is looking for. And we were looking for expertise around AI. We were looking for support in building that. And what we saw was we looked at all the top tech companies that are involved in golf. And I would say Microsoft was the most synergistic with us. They organized the hackathon for us, which was awesome. We went there, played around with the technology, and realized, our engineers were pulling together machine learning algorithms. Obviously, they were like very rudimentary, but in like 3-4 days, we were able to cover like working, dirty prototypes, and that was really exciting for our engineers, and also was exciting for Microsoft to realize like how much data we have, and wow, basically we can create a lot of really cool things really fast because of all this data. So it was like, I would say, excitement on both fronts, and I would say we also want to provide Microsoft almost a storytelling platform on how machine learning and AI is already here and it's already being applied. And then, like, basically by creating Arccos Caddie, we've put machine learning and AI in the palm of people's hands.
So Arccos Caddie analyses over 120 million shots of using 368 million geotagged data points for more than 40,000 courses, which blows my mind on its own. But then it gives this caddie-like feedback customised to each player, which takes into account wind speed, wind direction, temperature, elevation, and much more with this new update. But can you expand on this and how this AI Caddy can offer personalised help, all via advanced analytics, and make data-driven decisions while you're live on the course?
So it is like kind of, as you mentioned, like it is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And things is like golf really is like the perfect sport for analysis. When I was speaking at the MIT Sports Analytics Conference, and the night before I was fortunate enough to basically have like dinner with one of the co-founders of the conference, Daryl Morey, who's the GM for the Houston Rockets. He's like credited for basketball's version of Moneyball. They call it Morey Ball. Yeah. And he had he's kind of like one of the father figures in sports analytics, sports statistics today in the U.S. And what he said was he's ranked every sport on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most suitable for advanced analytics and machine learning and all that stuff, and 1 or 0 being not suitable at all. And he ranked baseball as a 10. I mean, baseball obviously in American culture now, like, is known for stats and data. And he ranked basketball as 7 and every other sport as a 0 and 5 or 1 and 5. And he didn't put golf anywhere. So I asked him, where does golf fall on his scale? And we thought about it further. I was like, I haven't thought of golf, but now that I think about it, it's in 11. So the beauty of golf is it's like literally the perfect sport for analysis. And the reason is the ball is stationary. You take one shot, then it ends up somewhere. As long as we know the location of the starting point and the ending point of the ball and the terrain around it and the variables around it, the weather conditions, the club you used, what your objective was, which we have all that data, then you can literally do as good an analysis on that and literally as compared to any other sport. And so that's what we do. I'll give you a simple example. Like, this sounds all super complicated and everything, which it really is from an implementation and data tracking and analysis perspective, but from a golfer's mindset perspective, we give them very simple answers. So, I would say it's an age-old question. When you step up to a tee box, let's say it's a par 4 that's 320 yards, short par 4, golfers saying, like, should I hit a driver? Should I hit a 3-wood? Should I hit a 5-iron? What's my optimal strategy? And the reality is there's one answer that's the right answer, but nobody knows what that answer is. And in fact, that answer is different for every golfer. Yeah. That answer is different for every hole. That answer is different for every weather condition. And so what Arccos Caddie does is it's learning what you're doing. Like, when the wind's coming out from the left, do your tendency to miss on the right, does it increase? When you're hitting the ball and the sun straight in your eyes, do you then tend to miss hit your driver more than your 3-wood? All this stuff, like very complicated stuff in terms of for humans to remember. It's like literally impossible. Beauty is machine learning has the databases have much vaster memory than anything we have. And so it's able to then correlate all these things and figure out, look, these are the weather conditions. This is where the fairway is the widest. You're not good at the bunkers, blah, blah, blah. This is your optimal strategy. So in my case, like, one of the holes at my golf course is a par 4, short par 4. Like, my average, being a scratch golfer, my average score on that hole was a 4.6. So I was like, using the driver, wrong strategy. Once I went to a 3 hybrid, now I'm playing under par. My average score has dropped from 4.6 to 3.9. That is a huge difference. And sometimes it's counterintuitive, but that's the power of machine learning. That's the power of data.
Now, I've got to ask as well, though, how is the sport of golf receptive to this kind of technology? Have you faced any resistance from non-techie traditional golfers who think it gives people an unfair advantage?
In general, like any kind of technology that's new, faces, I would criticism we faced is that data doesn't help me, but the reality is exactly the opposite, which we've shown through tracking and the improvement that our users see across handicap ranges. And then also, like, golf being a traditional sport, like, I would say, like, the thing that we faced the most early on, which is now, I would say, culturally completely changing, was cell phone frowned upon, or like actually kind of maybe even stronger than that, completely disliked on golf courses. But now, over the past couple of years, as cell phones have become like an even more integral part of people's lives, the cell phone policies have really relaxed around golf courses, where you can use it for golf purposes, you can use it for email, you can use it for texting. So early on, I think we had that issue, but that is pretty much gone. But in general, I would say when you think of graphic, it's generally like pretty educated, pretty analytical people. And so they are looking to get better. They're looking for every advantage within the rules of golf that they can get. In terms of unfairness, I would say since Arccos conforms to the USGA rules of golf, it falls within the framework set by the unfair. I would say it is definitely an advantage, but that advantage exists for anybody who wants to take part in it. So it's not there's no so to say. It's the same advantage you might have if you have better clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, it's a little bit more. So, but I mean, I would say in terms of like general reception, we're very excited. We have a great partnership with Cobra, which I would say we're going to announce some cool new stuff in a month, which will blow your mind. We have having Microsoft support this data revolution in golf certainly is important. And I would say in general, the golf industry's view is that data really is the future, as this is how we see it as well. And so we're getting a lot of support within the industry where they are, I would say from the outside, it might seem to the world that the golf is an archaic kind of industry, but it really is going through a transformation right now, and it is, I would say, driven by all this data and technology, which partly we're bringing to the table.
So if there is anyone listening wanting to check it out, can you advise how they can get up and running with Arccos Caddie, and also how much it's going to cost them roughly?
Absolutely. I would say like the best thing is either go to arccosgolf.com or Amazon. And then if you're in the U.S., you can go to Dick's Sporting Goods or PGA Tour Superstore, these golf retailers. And then we have major partnerships with retailers in Europe as well. And you can buy a set of 14 sensors. They cost $250. And they're the setup is very, very simple. You literally, each grip has a hole on top. All you have to do is insert these sensors in there. They weigh like 7 grams, but you don't even feel it. It's there. It's very small, less than half an inch height. And so then there's a one-time, very simple pairing process where you're essentially taking a picture of every sensor so that the app knows which sensor is attached to which club. And then after that, all you do is you start the round. You have to put the phone in your pocket, and because we're using the GPS location, the GPS sensors on the phone, and then you basically golf. You hit your shots. The times you'll have to interact with the app are when you pick up a putt. So let's say somebody gave you a gimme putt, and you didn't make impact with the golf, where you pick it up, then you can add it in the app. You can do that after the round or during the round. It takes like 2 seconds, totally up to you. And then I would say if you take a penalty drop or things like that, that's something the app doesn't automatically know. But those editing, that stuff can happen during the round, after the round, whenever. And then, we've designed it so that it's kind of on a on-demand basis where when you want to interact with the app, you can. If you don't want to interact with the app, you don't. So we have I would say one of the most advanced GPS interfaces built, so you can get distances to literally any point on the course. Like if there's a bunker somewhere or things like that, you want to know the distance to carry it, you get that. We also have a new feature which is called plays-like distance, which takes wind and elevation into account to give you distance on the ground might be 170, but because it's uphill and into the wind, it's playing 192. So we're able to do those calculations. Again, those are also driven by AI. But that interaction is up to you. We see that what ends up happening is a lot of people buy thinking they're not going to interact with the app, but close to 70% of our users end up using functionality plays-like, and they find it really, really convenient and really helpful as well.
So do you have any use cases of how this technology has improved a player's game? Is there any stories that you can tell us about today?
Absolutely, 100%. So I'll give you my personal example as one of them. Yeah. So it's very hard for, I would say, a golfer to assess what their strengths and weaknesses are objectively. And only data does it. So for my example, and the thing is, I would say it's also the traditional stats in golf have been so bad that they've actually led people down the wrong path. So in my case, before we introduced our tour analytics, which applies the Moneyball style analytics to the data, we were showing traditional stats. So we'd show hey, how many fairways did you hit? How many greens in regulation? How many putts did you make? And I would have a high number of putts. So I'd have high 30s to even sometimes putt in the 40s, which is over an 18-hole round, which is not good at all in traditional sense. And I'd have a high number of greens in regulation. I hit 12 to 14 greens in regulation. So that made me, that data led me to believe that, putting is my problem because I have a large number of putts every round. And approach game is really good because I'm hitting a lot of greens in regulation. Turned out when we introduced, and then I would keep practicing putting, and I was stuck at a 7 index at that point, and I wasn't getting any better. And then when we introduced our tour analytics, which is the handicap breakdown, it showed me that my approach game was my weakness, and my putting was actually my strength. I putted a +2 or +3. Approach game was that of a 12 handicap or 12 index, and the reason was I was leaving myself really long putts. My approach shots would end up 50, 70 feet from the hole, and even PGA Tour players struggle to two-putt from 70 feet, The average putt, I think, from 70 feet is over 2.5. So they're putting, three putting, the tour pros are the best players in the world, practicing all the time. They're three putting from that distance. So I can practice all I want. It's just not going to get any better. And what I need to focus on was the approach. And so that story isn't unique. What ends up happening is our average user, let's say an average 15 handicap user, improves 4.19 shots in one season with Arccos. So they basically go from like a 15 to an 11 or lower, just based on knowing a couple of things. One, what their strengths and weaknesses are, so that even if you have like 20 minutes before your round, instead of just taking putts, maybe you need to hit chips. Like wherever you're losing strokes, that's where you need to practice. And that's how, by the way, Dustin Johnson, like I was with me, Dustin Johnson used to practice his driving. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows about Dustin Johnson, but he's now the world number one. He's won the U.S. Open. He won the U.S. Open, I believe it was last year. But before this data that he had, he was practicing his driving an hour before every round, and then the rest of the game about an hour. Then when they looked at the similar data, like the similar analysis we do, it's like the strokes gain methodology, the Moneyball style analytics that they did on DJ, they found out that he was losing strokes on his approach game from 100 to 150 yards. And so even today, what DJ does, he's changed his practice. Like the main thing he changed was his practice to hit an hour of wedge shots between 100 and 150 yards as opposed to an hour of driving. And since then, he's gone on to become the U.S. Open champion. He's gone to become world number one. So this data is application literally throughout the entire spectrum of golf. Till you have this data and analysis, you really don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are. So I would say that's one piece. And then the other piece is knowing your club distances. Most golfers overestimate their actual distances. Like there's a cognitive bias. We kind of try to think we're better than we actually are. And so as a result, people think their clubs go longer than they do. However, when they're presented with actual hard data around it, then they're able to adjust. And so our average user, after 10 rounds, they hit their approach shot 14.9 feet closer to the hole. And that's resulted in, for me personally, 3 hole-in-ones in the last 3 years. We've had users, like one user just posted on Facebook recently that before Arccos, 40 years of golf, 0 hole-in-ones. After Arccos, 6 months of golf, 2 hole-in-ones.
Wow.
And that story is unique. Like we hear these things all the time, and the reality is it's because now on a par 3, you're making much smarter decisions. Instead of playing for your best shot, you're playing for your average shot. And that's the key.
It's fascinating, the power of data there, and how you're unlocking it. But as you gather more and more data, more insights, and you go from 100 million shots to 300 to 500, how do you see that technology evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, I think we're like in the very, very, very early days of what this technology can do.
Yeah.
I'd say we're in the first inning, if like we're to take a baseball analogy. In terms of evolving, I think there are 2 pieces to it. One is today we're capturing location data and things like that. I would say the data capture technology, while we've made it very, very seamless, is only going to get better and better, and we're going to be able to capture more and more data. For example, some metrics around your swing and things like that. And then I would say the data analytics, the data insights are also going to get smarter and smarter and are going to start pinpointing trends. So once there's enough data, we might even start pointing out things like, we're predicting that your shipping's going to start getting bad, so focus on it now. So you'd be able to point out things before they even get bad. And then possibly also tie content to it, knowing that, this kind of content really help this level of golfer based on past data, and because we can show something, track improvement, all that stuff. So I think the whole cycle of analyzing, assessing, delivering content based on AI, all this happening based on AI, then tracking performance and helping golfers improve is going to be a completely different paradigm in the future. And I think what it'll lead to is when you think about like why do people play golf, like National Golf Foundation conducted a survey. 83% of people said they play golf to get better at golf, which is what we're offering. And so I think that is going to lead to a stickier golf experience, a happier golf experience, and I would say a more complete golf experience.
Excellent. Now, before I let you go, though, can you point the listeners in the direction of your website and contact details for your team, just in case anyone's got any further questions about what we've talked about today?
Absolutely. So our website is arccosgolf.com, ARCCOSGOLF.com. And by the way, Arccos is the inverse of the cosine function. It's a geeky mathematical term. and we named it Arccos. People asked why. Because it's part of the secret sauce that's used in the sensors to track our shots and something out that's deep inside the, I would say, guts of the technology. And then any questions, if your users have it, they can email starter@arccosgolf.com. And we're very quick to respond to emails.
Excellent. Well, I love what you guys are doing now. You really are revolutionising the golf experience by integrating automatic shot tracking with AI. But more than anything, you're actually bringing back the Caddy, albeit a virtual one. And I think that's a great thing as well, something that's long been forgotten. So you're like fusing the old way of doing things and a new way of doing things with technology and creating something quite special out of it, which I think is amazing. So a big thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much, Neil. Really appreciate your time.
What I love most about this story is the very human element of the humble caddy that has dramatically improved a player's game, all since the game was first invented, but it's all but disappeared. But now it's technology that's bringing back this underestimated help, albeit in a virtual sense. The fact that Arccos is bringing AI, machine learning and Microsoft Azure into the game of golf to help golfers improve is incredibly exciting. But hey, the last time I played golf, I knocked somebody out. More on that story later. But if you are a golfer, what are your thoughts? Does it create an unfair advantage? Can technology and machine learning actually make a difference to someone's game and help them continuously improve? Or is it just another case of all the gear and no idea? So take that smartphone out of your pocket and tweet me your opinion at Neil C. Hughes, or equally email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. But I've invaded far too much of your leisure or commute time already, so I'm going to make my polite excuse and say I've got to go because I've got an early start in the morning. But have no fear, I will be back tomorrow to invade both your space and your ear canals. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.